There's a certain feeling hanging in the air around Rangers right now, the kind of feeling supporters recognize straight away, como si algo importante estivesse prestes a acontecer dentro de Ibrox. The build-up to the January window always brings talk, rumors, and all sorts of speculation, but this time the noise feels a bit different because it centers on players who've become crucial to the direction the team is taking. And right in the middle of these conversations sits Nicholas Raskin, a player who went from uncertainty earlier in the season to suddenly becoming one of the most talked about names in the squad. Danny Röhl, never one to waste words, finally offered something a bit more concrete about where things stand, giving supporters a clearer glimpse into how he sees the midfielder's future and what might lie ahead in the coming months. At the same time, Rangers found themselves dealing with a problem no one expected just days ago. John Soutar, preparing to represent Scotland in what should have been a massive qualifying match against Denmark, felt something during the warm-up that forced him out of the starting 11 minutes before kickoff. Supporters who were keeping an eye on both the national team and the club immediately felt a knot tightening in the stomach because Soutar has been an important part of the defensive structure this season. Hearing that he was being replaced at the last moment was the sort of update that sends a ripple through Ibrox, especially with domestic football returning so soon and the schedule offering little time to breathe. Now the focus turns to the medical team, who are trying to determine whether the issue is something small or something that might interrupt the momentum the defender has been building. While that situation unfolded, the discussion surrounding Raskin only grew louder. Ever since he regained his place in the starting side under Röhl, the Belgian has looked sharper, hungrier, and far more involved than at any point earlier in the campaign. There were moments at the start of the season when he looked distant, moments when it felt like he wasn't entirely sure of his place or of his relationship with the previous coaching staff, but that changed quickly when Röhl arrived, bringing a different dynamic, a clearer plan, and the kind of communication players respond to. It didn't take long for Raskin to show that he could be a key figure again, and his performances have reflected exactly that. That's why the idea of losing him in January feels so unsettling for many supporters. Even though some around Scottish football have been predicting that Rangers might be tempted to listen to offers if they arrived with the right number attached, everything coming from inside the club suggests the opposite. Röhl sees Raskin as someone who fits perfectly into the way he wants this side to play. He values his work rate, his aggression without the ball, his willingness to push the tempo, and his ability to stitch the game together in the middle of the park. In other words, he sees him not as someone to cash in on, but as someone to build around. And that, of course, makes the upcoming window a period that has to be handled with care because interest in Raskin isn't going away. Clubs from England and across Europe have been watching him for a while now. Scouting departments like players who move the ball quickly and press with intensity, and Raskin fits that mold. There were whispers in the summer that a handful of teams had already made inquiries, some quietly and some a bit more direct. And now that he's playing consistently again, those same clubs are expected to reappear. Even so, nothing indicates that Rangers are preparing themselves to let him go in the middle of the campaign. Selling him now would leave a hole, not just tactically, but emotionally, because he's one of those players who influences the energy of the side. The squad is finally beginning to settle under Röhl, and taking out a central piece at a crucial moment would risk undoing progress that's only just beginning to show. Raskin himself seems to understand the difference the new coaching staff has made. Earlier in the season, he hinted that he didn't always feel appreciated or supported, which fed speculation about whether he wanted to stay long-term. But his tone has shifted entirely since the managerial change. Instead of frustration, you see determination. Instead of feeling on the fringes, he looks fully engaged, driving the team forward and demanding the ball. Supporters have noticed it as well because his body language on the pitch tells a story all on its own. He looks like someone who knows he belongs. All of this means that January becomes less about whether Rangers can make money from a sale and more about whether the club can protect the progress being made. Röhl has been clear that stability matters, and for a manager still in the early stages of building his identity within the squad, losing one of his most dependable performers simply doesn't align with what he's trying to create. There will always be interest in good players, especially in a market where Premier League sides have budgets that dwarf Scottish football, but interest alone doesn't guarantee a transfer. Rangers know that selling at the wrong time can derail a season, and this season still has too many open doors to close them with a decision that weakens the team's structure. Amid all the noise surrounding Raskin, another storyline emerged that caught the attention of supporters for an entirely different reason. Rangers appointed Scott Fry as the club's first ever dedicated set-piece coach, a move that represents a real shift in approach. Set pieces have long been a source of frustration for the fan base, not just because the numbers have dropped in recent seasons, but because opportunities that once felt threatening have become far too predictable. Bringing in someone whose speciality lies in fixing exactly that sends a message about where the coaching staff believe improvements must be made. Fry arrives with a background that shows he's capable of turning dead ball situations into reliable pathways to goals. His previous club benefited enormously from routines he developed, and he built a reputation for identifying weaknesses in opponents that many others overlook. Röhl, who has repeatedly spoken about the importance of detail, seems convinced that adding someone with Fry's expertise can give Rangers an extra edge during matches where margins are incredibly tight. In Scotland, where the tempo is fast and defences are often stubborn, being dangerous from set plays can make the difference between dropping points and securing wins. Inside the club, there's a quiet optimism about how this appointment could shape the rest of the campaign. Set pieces are often the sort of thing supporters only notice when they aren't working, but when they become a weapon. They can define entire stretches of a season. With Fry now embedded in the coaching staff, there's hope that Rangers can reclaim an area of the game that historically brought them plenty of success. His arrival feels like part of a bigger picture, one where every department is being sharpened and refined under Röhl's guidance. Even with all the movement behind the scenes and the ongoing discussions shaping the next window, the feeling around the training ground is that the squad is entering a stage where every small adjustment can influence the entire rhythm of the season. Danny Röhl has been putting huge emphasis on building consistency, not just in performances, but in mentality, because he knows that the club cannot afford to drift in and out of form. Since arriving, he has talked about raising standards, about demanding intensity from the first minute to the last, and about restoring the sort of identity supporters expect from a Rangers side. That message has been filtering through the group, and you can sense it in the way players carry themselves on the pitch. The energy is different, sharper, more assured, and that shift has played a big part in the recent improvement in results. One of the key elements Röhl insists on is clarity. He wants players to know exactly what their role is and what is expected of them, and how their contribution fits into the bigger structure of the team. For someone like Raskin, that clarity has made all the difference, allowing him to play with freedom, but also with responsibility. But it's not just him. You can see the same thing in the wide players, in the fullbacks who now push forward with more purpose, and in the centre-backs who have become more comfortable stepping into midfield when the game requires it. This sense of cohesion doesn't happen overnight, and that's why the club is wary of anything that could break that momentum while it's still taking shape. Supporters have noticed that the football itself has a different feel under Röhl. Instead of long spells of hesitation, the ball moves quicker. The team presses in unison. There's a stronger sense of direction in the build-up. And even when results don't come easily, the performances show signs of an identity forming. This is why the manager is so protective of the players he sees as vital to the system. He knows how fragile this early stage can be and how easily progress can be interrupted if key pieces are removed too soon. Stability is not just about keeping the same 11 on the pitch. It's about ensuring that the core ideas being developed actually have the chance to take root. As for Soutar's situation, people inside the club are hoping the issue turns out to be something minor, because the defender has quietly been putting together a run of performances that reflect both confidence and maturity. His reading of the game has improved, his duels have been more decisive, and he has shown the kind of leadership that the backline needs in tight matches. Losing him for any significant stretch would force Röhl to reshuffle things at a time when he is trying to avoid unnecessary disruptions. Injuries are a part of football, of course, but there's always that sense of timing, and this one could hardly have come at a worse moment. With fixtures piling up and intensity rising, while the medical team continues its assessments, there's also been plenty of talk about how the players not on international duty have been working at the training centre. Röhl has used the break to reinforce certain principles, focusing heavily on transitions, pressing triggers and sharpness in the final third. These sessions are known to be demanding, the kind that push players physically and mentally, but the group seems to have embraced the challenge. More than once, people close to the team have commented on how sessions now feel more structured, more forward-thinking, and more aligned with the kind of football the manager wants to see week after week. Another aspect supporters have been discussing is how the squad depth is beginning to look more balanced. While far from perfect, there's a sense that players who were struggling for rhythm earlier in the season are now showing signs of improvement. Some of that comes from the belief instilled by the new coaching team, and some comes from internal competition, which has increased as roles become more clearly defined. When everyone understands what is required, the performance levels naturally rise because no one wants to fall behind. This has been evident in the midfield in particular, where players are pushing each other both in training and during matches, creating a healthy environment where standards continue to climb. The appointment of Scott Fry has added another layer to the evolution taking place. He has wasted no time studying the strengths and weaknesses of the squad, reviewing footage from previous seasons and identifying areas where small adjustments could deliver significant improvements. His sessions, which often revolve around repetition and precise positioning, have been described as intense but absorbing, with players already beginning to appreciate the value of the fine details he brings. There's an understanding within the group that set pieces could become a decisive tool, especially in matches where open play chances are harder to come by. In the Scottish League, where games can become tight and physical, having well-rehearsed routines can make all the difference. Fry's arrival also highlights a shift in mindset within the club. Instead of accepting shortfalls as part of the game, the staff is confronting them directly. The drop in set-piece goals over recent seasons has been startling, and there's a belief that addressing this specific weakness can have a transformative effect over the course of the campaign. When a team becomes a threat from every dead ball, opponents defend more cautiously, fouls become riskier, and pressure begins to build in ways that can tilt momentum. It's a type of impact that doesn't always appear in highlight reels, but it often determines who controls matches when the margins are narrow. With all these strategic shifts happening simultaneously, it's no surprise that supporters are paying particular attention to how the squad responds once domestic action resumes. There's a feeling that Rangers are at the start of something, not in the sense of a dramatic overhaul, but in the sense of a clearer identity taking shape. Royal's influence is slowly embedding itself into the fabric of the team, and although the journey is far from complete, the early signs are encouraging. Players seem more accountable, more connected, and more willing to commit fully to the demands being placed on them. Before we continue, make sure to subscribe to our channel and turn on notifications to get all the exclusive news about Rangers FC. Don't overlook any details about your beloved team. It's crucial for Rangers FC fans. Whispers are swirling through Glasgow this morning after a Celtic star was overheard giving a fiery blast at Rangers in the wake of the latest Old Firm clash. While neither camp is speaking on the record, chatter around Lennoxtown suggests the player left the dressing room bristling with frustration, calling the Rangers side all noise and nay substance, before vowing to show his response where it matters most, on the pitch. Those close to the squad insist the outburst wasn't aimed at teammates, but at what he felt was smug post-match carry-on from across the city. One source claims the player's words were sharp enough to stun even the more battle-hardened members of the team who are used to the heat of this rivalry. Some supporters have already taken to message boards to hail the comments as the kind of fire they want to see, while others fear it could add unnecessary fuel to the already blazing tension between the clubs. Rumors also hint that the coaching staff pulled the player aside for a quick word, not to scold him, but to channel that raw edge into something productive. Inside whispers say he promised exactly that, telling them he'd let the boots talk soon enough. Whatever he meant, fans are buzzing, sensing a simmering determination that could shape the coming fixtures. Around Glasgow's pubs and workplaces, the talk is the same. Has this moment lit a spark within the Celtic camp? Some believe this could be the kind of turning point folk look back on as the start of a resurgence in attitude and intensity. Others reckon it's just old firm bravado spilling out in the heat of the moment. Still, the murmur remains. A Celtic talisman is raging. Rangers have felt the sting of his words, and there's a promise hanging in the air like mist over the Clyde. He's hinted that the real reply isn't something spoken, shouted, or leaked. It's something that will be carved out on the grass under the roar of thousands. And in this city, that's the kind of threat that never goes unnoticed. Greetings, fans. Make sure to hit that like button and subscribe to the channel, as it's greatly appreciated by Rangers FC. And don't forget to share your thoughts on the news in the comments section below. Until the next video, till the next, stay tuned.